Let me testify. It's gonna be the year that I break every cycle. Let me testify, right hand on the Bible. I was tripping, chasing every empty title. Now I'm locked in, living like a walking Bible.
It is 2026, y'all, and some of us are still the first. But have we talked about what happens after you actually get there? Everybody celebrates the degree, the promotion, the business, the house, the title. But who pulls you aside and says, this might be one of the loneliest seasons of your life? Because suddenly, you're carrying expectations that nobody prepared you for. People are proud of you, but they're also depending on you. You're grateful, but you're grieving. You're succeeding, but somehow you still feel responsible for everybody who didn't get the same opportunities. Today isn't about celebrating being first. We already know that's a blessing. Today, we're talking about what that blessing looks like on the other side of receiving it. Because here's what I believe. Just because God called you to break the cycle doesn't mean he called you to carry it by yourself. So ladies, let's talk about it.
Listen, Dr. DQ done set the tone. Welcome back to the YesWork podcast. We are here to have these open, honest conversations about faith, healing, purpose, internal work that changes how we live. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. If you're returning listeners, welcome back. We love you. We love everybody. Welcome. I am Dr. Blair, and I am here with my amazing host.
I am Dr. DQ. I am Lady B.
Today's conversation is one that's deeply personal because success isn't always as simple as people think it is. We celebrate the milestones, the promotions, the degrees, the breakthroughs, but we don't often talk about what those milestones ask of us emotionally. So whether you're the first to graduate, lead, build wealth, hallelujah, prosperity in here, or simply do the life that you have been doing differently than the generations before you. This conversation is more about what happens afterwards, not the achievement itself. If you've ever felt like becoming the first also meant becoming the one everyone depends on, looks to, that you have to maintain this image, reputation, the thing you represent, baby, this conversation is for you. So stay a little while.
So there's language for this, and I think naming it takes some of this power away. First generation leadership, it just means you're the first in your family or lineage to hold a role, a title, a degree, or as Dr. Blair said, the income level. Okay, we're talking about generational wealth over here that nobody before held. That's it. It's a fact, not a personality trait. When we're talking about cycle breaking, that's also the similar. It's not a feeling. It's a function. You are the interruption point in a pattern that was repeating before you even got here. And somebody has to be the interruption point. That happened to be you. That's what we are. We are the interruption point.
I appreciate you sharing that, Lady B, because I also think that cycle breaking, that may not necessarily be terminology that people are associating with or can kind of draw a connection to. And I think about breaking generational curses and it falling within that particular space, right? When we think about addiction, when we think about a poverty mindset, ooh, my goodness, that can echo generation after generation. We've always done it this way. We've always had to grind. We've always had to hustle. And being the first to break that will change how people look at you, how they regard you. They may start feeling like, oh, you're not one of us no more. You know what I'm saying? And we've talked about this, the comfort of wanting to have similar people and have those past relationships, even though you know that there's better for you and more for you. But the generational curse piece is really, you can be the first in that as far as breaking cycles. So it don't necessarily have to be kind of outward successes. It can be I don't have that mindset no more. I look at the world differently. Like those things I think are really important.
Wow. Yeah. And, I think what Dr. Blair is describing is heavy. It's heaviness, right? A lot of us would call that achievement guilt. And, it makes me think back to Dr. Blaine when you say poverty or just thinking like, this is not the lifestyle. We're not living and doing the way that we used to do. Like we're changing it up from my family. And it's something I didn't experience until I came into marriage with my husband and his family, right? And so it's bringing two different lifestyles together, if you will, to really share like, okay, let me understand that. Okay, yeah, no, we gonna do it this way. So, some people call it survivor's guilt of success. Succeeding in a way that puts distance between you and the people who made you. So here's the distinction that I want to offer before we can go even further is survival and fulfillment are not the same goal, right? A lot of first generation leaders are quietly optimizing for survival long after it has stopped being the assignment. And they don't even notice the switch never got flipped to fulfillment.
You know, come on, Lady B, and we already in this conversation. I want to go back to when you talked about the survivor's guilt and referring back to the people who made you. I know of people who have heard from people who love them and care for them. You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me. And that puts guilt on people. Like, okay, well, I owe something to you because you're right. And parents will sometimes weaponize this and abuse this. You'll see family members, friends. It's like, yeah, but I lifted you up and I paid for this and I contributed to this. And so that adds to that heaviness of like, okay, I did make it, but now I gotta, and I do think that there's a sense of responsibility to a collectivistic society. Like if I make it, like I need to pull people up with me, but pulling people up versus like them dragging you down, it's a little different. It's a little different. We may get to it in our cultural corner, but I think about the athletes, right, who are millionaires, but again, still have that poverty mindset. So they get a little bit of money and they blowing it versus investing in it. Because like, that's what we do. Like when I get this money, like I don't know how long I'm gonna have it. I've never had these nice things before. Let me go ahead and spend it. And now you're looking like TLC and they broke because they done bought these $1 million houses and then nobody told them like financial fiscal responsibility. And they like, wait, what happened? Cause you took this, amazingly talented hood girl and then put her on Rodeo Drive. And now I don't know what to do. Or my family's looking at me like, girl, you made it. Now hand out. So that's real. So I want us to bring in our lives. And I think it's important to acknowledge that this conversation is different because for a lot of us, becoming the first wasn't just a personal accomplishment. It was a family event. It was for the people, for the tribe, for the crew. So people are celebrating you. People are proud of you. And underneath all of it, there were things that were never said aloud. So I want us to get in this space of like being able to kind of talk about what happens after the accomplishment. So my ladies, where my girls at from the front?
I think that I knew other people expected me to be successful when they made it possible for me to be successful, if that makes sense. Now, I don't feel like anybody ever wanted anything from me, but I'm blessed. My parents definitely made it possible for me to participate in activities, serve in different clubs, go to school without having the stress of having to work or having to take care of other things around the house. I was able to go to college and I didn't have to get a job while I was in college. So I knew that my success was an expectation. I think it was just how I was raised, and I was also raised to prioritize my schoolwork, to have options. And I think ultimately, and my mom has absolutely told me this, that they wanted better for me and my brother than what they had for themselves. So, and I thank God for that. I thank God for them. I a college graduate. Both of my parents went to school. They didn't have the honor of finishing their journey. So my success was all tied into what they wanted from me and my brother based on their own experiences.
Well, I got to ask a follow-up, Dr. DQ. Do you feel like that added pressure to you to make sure that you did achieve the things that they were hoping for you?
I think that absolutely made it so that giving my best was a non-negotiable. Okay. So if I gave my best and it didn't work out, that was fine. But I had the pressure to give my best and do my best and do kind of what was expected of me. And then naturally I grew accustomed to being successful. So then when I wasn't, it was hard. Okay, I quit in this doctorate program. I quit in my mind about 7, 8 times a week. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all, all the doctoral students out there, the Lord is with you. Keep it going.
Yes. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
This is interesting because I would love to phone a friend. Let's phone in Mama Cecilia in here because I was recently having this conversation with someone, but I don't know how she instilled this successful mindset in me because I don't recall there being pressure ever to succeed. It felt very natural, and I think that our family education it wasn't a question. Like I didn't question it, I didn't question going to college. I did question masters. I was the first in my family to get my master's, but I didn't question a lot of those expectations. It just seemed so natural. Like this was gradually what should happen. This is what's supposed to happen. So I don't feel like my success was really other people's expectation. I think for me, it was internalized where I just didn't want to disappoint people. Like that was from early on, right? I did not want to. I was very goal driven early on and wanted something out of life. So therefore, I naturally just would seek for opportunities, would seek success. And, my mother or family they would be there to praise me. It was praise. But it never was, they always seemed overjoyed and like surprised, like, oh, wow, that's amazing. You're doing that. So it never was necessarily an expectation.
So there's a few things that y'all have shared that I want us to go deeper into. I think about sharing that it felt natural, right? There wasn't necessarily like a real overt pressure or whatnot. You didn't question, people's motives potentially as far as them encouraging you and giving opportunities and lifting you up that way. But then it also connected to this desire to not disappoint. And I'm wondering with that, when does it stop? Have you thought about, because there is this hidden, unsaid expectation that you either put on yourself because of, what was provided for you and given to you, that, and Dr. DQ talked about it like, oh man, but when I did fail, right, based off of our definition of failing, which may not be everybody's definition, like that was hard. So that disappointment, how does it show up now that you have done the things? If we don't do anything else, y'all, people would still say you're successful. We could stay in the same job. We ain't gotta have no more kids.
You're right.
Not
We could
going
just,
to. No, not going to. Shout out to the people that's having more children. Not me. I'm sorry. Did I interrupt? Go ahead, sis.
that was funny. Solidifies the point, right? We could just stay, we could coast where we are right now and people would still say you're successful.
Yeah.
That disappointment, when does it stop? When, you know what I'm saying? Like, have y'all thought about that? Or where does that show up for y'all?
I don't know. Facing disappointment is a struggle, but where I'm growing into now is that disappointment just meant that it wasn't for me, right? So there are jobs I've applied to, I've gone through the process, get to the end, didn't get selected, not for me. I've had jobs, it was seasonal, and had done it for 3-4 years in a row, back to back, and then this 5th year, crickets, and they just stringing me along. Like, it's not for me. I'm disappointed because that was a check, but I am wrapping my mind around the fact that I'm disappointed, but that joy comes in the morning, right? I'm going to just be disappointed for a little while and I'm going to realize like, okay, well, that wasn't for me. So let me keep moving. So in a sense, while it may be this temporary feeling of disappointment, it is not a noun. I don't know if that makes sense. It's not like a permanent status where it's disappointment. I can't file it in that category because really maybe it was a blessing in disguise. And so I just have to move on and just realize that It just wasn't for me. It was somebody else's opportunity.
I was pausing because it looked like Dr. Blair had more questions. Some follow-up.
She do, but I want to give space if you have, Lady B, kind of thought about the disappointment piece and if it's just ongoing, especially the more that we achieve and the more success, right, we have, if it's a vicious cycle.
That deep sigh, right? So I don't have a lot of disappointment. I would say I don't have a lot of disappointment. What gets me, I am still that little girl that never wants to disappoint her mom. Like that's what's on my shoulders. That's what's over my head. Everything that I do is still connected to that source. It's like, I want to make her proud, and I don't want to disappoint her. It could be issues. It could be something related to my marriage. And, I don't want to disappoint her. I'm thinking about how it impacts her. And so it is, I don't know. I know I probably need to go see a therapist.
That's all right. We all do.
But, because I don't know why it's that connection. A lot of my childhood was just her and I. So there's that very close bond and connection. But when it comes to disappointment, that's what I was trying to think of it. And it's really connected to her. Like, I do want to go and move beyond and be successful so that she can see it, so that she can be proud, so that,
That's good. I think about that's a weight too, right? Because even though I think we all know that, like, there's probably very little that we can do because our parents love us unconditionally and we're blessed because that's not always the case for everyone, for their caregivers and their parents. But we are, the three of us are blessed as far as our mothers and our family and the people that love us.
I just want you to know that you touched on something there, that it's a lot of weight.
It is.
It's a lot of weight to carry.
Yeah. Because even if they tell us, like, this is what I expect of you, to constantly strive for that, there's a cost for the person that's trying to achieve that success. That's
I think
heavy.
we need an episode that talks about we are our mother's only daughter.
Yeah.
All of us.
All of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, as of right now, today, that's the situation for Dr. DQ. And, well, Dr. DQ ain't having no more kids. So for her daughter.
Corey can record that episode, also the sequel, in another 25 years. Yes, she can.
But that's the same for me as well with my daughter. And wow. Yeah, that's an episode. All right, listeners, too. Come on. Oh, for the ones that have reconciled that or working through that now, or even just us sharing that in real time, if you're like, yes, please, and thank you, leave a comment. We want to hear from y'all if that's a topic that you all feel like you can connect to as well. That's deep. That is deep. I want to lean into the piece around we're striving for success. Man, we could do a whole episode on defining what success is, right? And we've talked about success before and how it is typically in the things, right? And that internal peace and joy that should be an indicator of success for us. But especially when it comes to being the first, there's this, again, the emotional weight of it and feeling like you don't have the right to share the struggle or talk about the cost of the things that you're doing. And I most directly think of when working towards my doctoral degree, I felt bad and a little bit of like guilt around saying like, this is hard. I broke down during my dinner celebration, whatever, on graduation day, and didn't even realize that was going to be my truth and like how it came out, because I was like, this was heavy. This was hard. I mean, the nights where my little boy, cause he was itty bitty at the time, but him coming to me and saying like, why are you still working? Not knowing that work, quote unquote, was school, right? It was the joining my daughter's violin concert via FaceTime because I had class that Saturday and I couldn't physically be there. And it was like, I didn't, especially in real time, feel like I could, or I had permission to say I'm struggling. And this thing that I'm working to achieve, this success, is hard. So ladies, Dr. DQ giving a look right here.
You said a whole line. You didn't feel like you had that permission.
Listen.
And that for us, we call it perseverance, which it is, but we're expected to persevere. We're expected to succeed. All Black women, we're superheroes. We make it look easy. We make it look very easy, and nobody really understands the term you used before, how heavy it is when you are sitting in those moments and you feel like you cannot fail. You don't have the permission to fail because of how it's going to look to other people that are counting on you. And then, of course, somewhere there's also going to be that comparison where it's like, well, so-and-so did it. I know I could do it if they did it.
Y'all, that line, it irks me. When people are like, if I can do it, you can do it. You don't have the same background as me, the same struggles, the same mindset, I don't know who you are. For you to say, if I could do it, I came from this, that, and good for you. I'm going to celebrate. But that doesn't then mean that I don't have my own things, that I don't have different type of heaviness, right? Yours is just, it's situated, you carrying it on your back, I'm carrying it on my shoulders. So it's different. And I think that's so important to acknowledge. Ooh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of the episode of Living Single when Regine was getting her breast reduction and she was half Delulu and she looked at, Khadijah and was like, why was it me and not you? And Khadijah looked up and said, I was built to carry this shelf or something like that. That's it. That's it.
I can't compare myself to you because I don't know what God has equipped in you versus in me. Like, what? That's a beautiful example, Dr. DQ.
Yeah. So,
that was good. I think that what we're really describing isn't necessarily even success. It is emotional responsibility that comes with fulfilling our dreams, aspirations, goals, God's will for us. And that's real different. Success says, I built something. Emotional responsibility says, now I have to carry everything that comes along with this goal, this success, this achievement. And those aren't the same thing. And I think that's really important that we were able to kind of bring that out through the sharing of our personal lives.
Mm-hmm. Listening to that, here's what I think is actually happening underneath that. Being the first gets treated like a permanent job instead of a single achievement, especially for all of you who are also the firstborn or the first daughters or the first sons, and then you're the first to achieve and you just got first. You got so many first place badges in your life, it don't make no sense. Nobody ever told you or let you know that assignment had an expiration date or an end date. So that pressure essentially just keeps renewing itself. And there's nobody that says, okay, you can stop now. We don't get that message, right? Come on, the people that we're talking to, y'all know y'all are the overachievers. So that's what happens when the identity and achievement get conflated. If what you do is who you are, then any rest feels like a threat to your worth, right? And we've talked about that. We've had those conversations. This is why the grind is nonstop and why we're tired. So, this adds to how we're wired. And of course, it's just going to create this vicious cycle that makes rest hard. It makes pausing hard. It makes rejuvenation and recuperation and relaxation very challenging and very difficult. And I also think that grief gets exiled from success, because somewhere along the way, we've learned that the success stories are the only ones that are worth listening to. And I know we talked about that before when it came to people giving their testimony. A lot of people don't share when they're in a struggle. They'll tell you about it after they've made it through. I'm guilty of that myself, but I'm not going to start to paint this picture. I can't do that for y'all. Right? I cannot paint this picture and I don't know what it's going to look like on the other side. So, a cycle breaker naming lost isn't ingratitude. It's honesty. So, putting that a different way, you're the first, you're doing, you're living, you're going through, naming the challenges and the loss that you experienced doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you honest. So carrying a family forward and carrying a family instead of yourself are two very different postures. And most of us are never really taught how to tell them apart, right? And what's interesting is that we are starting to see more and more people talk about this publicly. And if they're not talking about it, we're seeing it. We recognize what's happening. So a couple of examples, of course, our forever First Lady, Michelle Obama, has talked about the weight of being first. I did start her audiobook, and I just hearing about growing up on the South Side of Chicago. She was definitely the first, being in the White House as the First Lady. We saw the first, but just hearing how her beginnings were very humble and she was the first before she got to the White House.
Yeah.
There's also Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. She has described her family's journey in one line is that it took just one generation to go from segregation to the Supreme Court of the United States. That's heavy. That's big. There's Viola Davis, who wrote in her memoir about her generation being handed forward like a baton, where they had to carry the hope for people who couldn't finish the race themselves. And I think that sentiment carries, right? A lot of times we see the shirts, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. Sometimes we are our grandparents' wildest dreams and our parents' wildest dreams.
Yeah.
And we're going first. We are the first. And of course, y'all know I try to think about how we see this in real life. In addition to the examples that I named, you know, we also have those fictional characters. So I know we got some Madea fans out there. We had Meet the Browns, where, you know, the son made it and he made it to the big leagues, and then his daddy showed up out of nowhere. Another Madea example is Madea Family Reunion, where Lynn Whitfield, Lord, she played evil, but she'll never play broke. But anyway, she told her daughter that her daughter owed her.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've always seen those pro athletes who are blowing money, to the example mentioned earlier, but then they also end up doing hood things, even though they're not in the hood no more, and messing up their blessings because they feel like they have to keep up and keep doing what they used to do because they don't want to change. They don't want to be accused of not being the same person they were before they got to that achievement. And there was also an episode of the D.L. Hughley show that I was listening to. And this one was that if he came into a large amount of money, he would have his family members sign an agreement that they ain't going to ask for no more money. Because, girl, yes. And I don't blame them. I understand. Because, yes, you don't want it to become about that, like you're the first.
Right.
I love you. I'm going to help you. But you can't extend your hand out all the time. So I can only carry you so far, or maybe I can't even really carry you at all. But I'm the first I've achieved. But there's an expiration date to how this achievement benefits them. So whether you agree or disagree with that, there's a couple of real life / media examples that might, you might be able to connect with.
I think that when it came to like Michelle and some of the others and their comments around, how difficult it was being in those moments, that naming the weight, especially for those that I think that as little Black girls, we look at these successful Black women and we don't know the struggle that they've had to endure in order to get to the thing. Because again, we got to be happy. We got to be proud. We have to celebrate and don't complain while going through it. But to be able to, and I think Michelle Obama is a great example because of all the non-politically related comments and commentary that she received when she was the first lady, and how she handled it with grace and with respect and honor. I think it was powerful to be able to see, wow, even though I have one of the highest of achievements when we think about our system as a culture in America, look at what she got to go through. We ain't hear nothing about no Hillary Clinton going through it, no Barbara Bush, nothing. And she was able to, again, with grace, just say, I'm here to do this work. This is my objective. So we were able to see in real time the struggles. And I think that has so much power to be able to hear people acknowledge, no, this was hard. This was heavy. This is what I had to go through, especially as they're going through it, because then it lets us know like, oh, this thing may not be easy. And some of us know, especially depending on what identity aspects you have and how you showing up, my Black women, brown women, my women, period, because this is a male dominated society that we live in. So we know some of that, but there's so much power in being able to like name it and hear other people who have made it talk about it. And I think that's the piece that we need to see and hear more of. Because otherwise we are then super women and superhuman, and that's not real.
It is not real. We live in off of the grace of God, though. So can I just say that, everything that we have been talking about, I just want to remind everyone that God settled this long before we became the first, right? So today, we picked out a scripture in Psalm 139, verse 14, and it reads, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And I absolutely, I love this verse. And here, David, in that particular scripture, he isn't praising God for the things that he's accomplished. What he's praising God for is for creating him, for creating him the way that he is, for thanking him and praising him for that. And I think that's a reminder that so many of us need, because somewhere along the journey, we have started to believe that our value came from being this responsible one, the one that has to carry the weight, the one that's carrying the flag for the family, the one that's holding the responsibilities, the person who's identified as successful, that everyone depends on. And that's not our identity. Before the degree, before the promotion that you've had, before that title, before you became the quote unquote cycle breaker, right? You were already fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yes.
So our worth was settled already before it was written. So if becoming the first is costing you, if it's costing us our peace, if it's costing you the rest, if it's costing you this sense of identity, remember that being the first may describe your journey, but it should never define who you are. And, I go back to what we were saying earlier about how the weight it comes with weight. When I think about I want to please my mom. I want to please these people, but it comes with weight and that interferes with so many other things. But this is a reminder that your greatest title is not being the first. Your greatest identity is that you belong to God. So that's a reminder to all of us.
That's good. And I'm going to do a shameless plug because in episode 24, we talked about knowing your value. That's the episode where I shared that I don't do well with compliments because I know what God says about me. And I don't need that validation from other people. When you know your worth, when you know your value, we can stop misinterpreting the accolades and the celebration and the affirmations that we may need from others, whether they verbally say it or whether or not, we feel that when we have those experiences of being the first or achieving something, it lands and hits differently when you know already what God has said about you and that you were qualified and didn't need those letters behind your name or the degree or 12 kids. Because back in the day, people associated success with kids. I don't know how they did it. Because Dr. DQ said this door closed. We ain't having no more. So
closed, locked, shut down, clank, clank.
Not the clank, clank. I want us to kind of walk through a few, you might be here type statements. You don't have to say anything out loud. Just notice which ones land with you, resonate with you. You might be carrying this if you feel guilty resting when no one has asked you to keep working. You just kind of put that on yourself. You might be carrying this if you downplay your success around family or certain people so it doesn't feel like you're creating distance and you're separating yourself from them or trying to stand out. So you can't even take pride even in some of the things you've done. You might be carrying this if you've never said out loud what your achievement actually cost you, how hard it was. some of the mourning and the grieving, right, that took place during or that's taking place afterwards. If 2 or more of those landed with you, you're exactly who this episode is for. So we want to give you your next steps and an invitation.
So here's what I don't want you all to miss, right? I don't want you to miss this today. The grief is not a betrayal of the blessing. So here's your yes for the week. Y'all know we love these yes statements, yes work, okay? Your yes for the week is a specific doable step. It's not just a feeling. Step 1, we want you to name one cost that came with being the first. It can be out loud. It can be on paper. You can write it in your journal. And this is not to complain, but just to stop pretending it did not happen. Step 2, tell one person in your life, someone safe, someone you can trust, the thing that you just named. You don't have to carry it by yourself anymore just because you've been the one who carries things. And drop in the comments. We want to know. We want to hear from you all. We like that engagement. Answer for us. What's the one cause you're naming for yourself this week? And who is the safe person that you'll tell? You don't have to put their names in there. You can just say it's auntie, friend, whoever. But share
or tag them. I don't know. Maybe. Cause I think there's a beauty in like, this is my safe person. This is the person I trust. So like, yeah. Tag them.
Tag them.
Well, if you've never let yourself process what it really means to be first, then this is your permission. This is your green light. You're still celebrating what God has done for you. So please don't misinterpret processing it with complaining or lack of gratitude. Process it and still celebrate what God did alongside it. Don't lose sight, y'all. Being first is absolutely a blessing. Somebody had to be first, and praise the Lord, God chose you. And He didn't leave you to be on the other side of success by yourself or even figure it out by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So we hope that this episode blessed somebody. Tag somebody. Subscribe, share. We'd love to hear from you guys. But we'll see you next time as we keep living with what the yes disrupted. Bye, y'all.
YesWork.